Clear prop.
Star 73, Cherokee number 2, following twin traffic, 3 mile final, clear Subfield. 1 Charlie Bravo, exit in runway 25, going 4 mile final.
This is Behind the Prop with United Flight Systems owner and licensed pilot Bobby Doss and his co-host, Major Airline Captain and Designated Pilot Examiner Wally Mulhern. Now let's go Behind the Prop.
What's up, Wally?
Hey, Bobby. How are you?
I am fantastic as always. This week we're going to do kind of a Reader's Digest episode. Just it's going to be a day in the life of being an airline pilot. We're going to kind of interview Wally today and get to know things that maybe we don't all know. Many people are trying to become airline pilots, and I'm not sure they all know what they're in for. Wally, what about you? Do you think they do?
I totally agree with that. When I do check rides, I take an opportunity to get to know the applicant a little bit, and then I tell them a little bit about me. And usually at the end of the check ride, a lot of times they'll say, "Hey, can I ask you a couple of questions?" And they will ask some questions, and they're a lot of times very basic questions. And so what I have learned is that we haven't done a very good job of letting people know, or people just don't know what it's like. I mean, I think if someone says, "Hey, I want to be a high school football coach," I think they can envision that probably going to be really long hours during the fall, the summer of the fall, and not as bad in the spring. You got an idea of what your working hours are, but I don't think a lot of people have any idea what it's like to be an airline pilot. So from a scheduling standpoint, and all the other things that go along with it as well.
Yeah, I don't think people, definitely the schedule, we're going to dive deep into that one. I would even say, we've talked about this, the aviation is still a secret society for some reason. It's not like high school counselors are talking about it and they're not advertising the true capabilities or possibilities of aviation as a whole. But if a high school kid, 18-year-old boy or girl, walked up to you and said, "Hey, what's the likelihood that if I don't have any medical issues that I could be an airline pilot today?" What would your answer be to that young man or woman?
Very likely.
Yeah, like they literally, just if they went through the training, then they got to have some source of funds, obviously, but very, very likely that they would become a professional pilot and work for a major airline out in the future somewhere. What I guess one thing that I hear around the flight school is, what's the chances that we don't need a bunch of pilots, right? We know there's this Boeing article says we need 80,000 pilots in the next 10 years. Everybody talks about that. But what if they stopped having 2 pilots up front? What's the reality of autonomous passenger planes, or maybe getting down to 1 pilot in the front of a 737, Wally? What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't know. And first of all, I don't see it happening from the standpoint of the airplanes that the airlines fly today are certified for 2 pilots. Okay, they're made for that. It says on the paperwork you got to have 2 pilots to fly these airplanes. So first of all, a lot of changes would have to be made. There are certain controls on these airplanes that you can't reach from both seats. So from that standpoint, it would be tough. But just to make it really, really, really simple, we fly long distances and for long periods of time in these airplanes. It's not like a 172 where we're flying for maybe 2 hours. I mean, maybe you can fly them for 4 hours, but probably not. Doesn't happen a whole lot. But in big airliners, just simply using the restroom becomes an issue if there's only 1 pilot up there. And I don't think people want to sit in the back of the airplane knowing that the pilot is in the bathroom using the restroom, and the airplane's on autopilot for even a few minutes, because sometimes things go wrong.
Yeah, I mean that would be devastating too. I mean, you're obviously sitting up there wearing a seatbelt in case there's a turbulence problem. Imagine hitting turbulence or something in the bathroom and nobody being up there. I can tell you for sure, my wife ain't getting on a plane if there ain't one or two people up there for sure. I mean, there's no way she'd get in a freaking drone to go across country for sure. So I think it's a long way off. I think it's a long way off. And I think people that think it's closer than a really long way off, it's just not going to happen. I get a chance occasionally to fly a fairly complex jet that is single pilot. And you watch that pilot operate that airplane, he's got his hands full, right? And I can't imagine how much workload would be on one pilot. I don't care how much they automate. It would still take a lot to work the radios and to work whatever controls you had to work. So I think we're a long way off. So the pilot shortage is real. We're going to keep using pilots for a long, long time to come. So if you think it's part of your future, you want it to be part of your future, it's definitely really, really possible. So now let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we'll start with schedules. I think the paradigm for me is it's one of those things we talked before we started here today. Like if I didn't know what I was doing, whether I was on or off duty, the third day of January right now, that'd be mind blowing to me. But you don't know if you're working the 3rd of January yet. And you always don't know the month before, right? You've never been able to, well, I'm sure you have, and you're going to tell us how, but like, how did you plan a Disney World trip with your kids 4 or 5 months in advance? How's that possible?
Yeah, well, that's what vacation is for. We do get vacation, and it's all seniority. I can get any days off that I want, as long as I know far in advance and I can bid for it. Here's an example. So I've got a good friend who invited me to go to a Texans game on January 1st, and I had to tell him, Bill, I don't know. I can't tell you. I won't be able to tell you until about the 15th of the month. If I want to get it off, I should be able to get it off. But, at least at my airline, we bid for our schedule a month in advance. The bidding closes on the 12th of the month. So today we're recording, it's December 10th as we're recording this episode, and this will come out on the 12th. So at 10 a.m. Central Time on the 12th of every month, our bids close. And when I say our bids, it's my wish list for my schedule for next month. So I can go in and what my airline does is they publish all the trips. So we have this document that has all the trips listed for next month, and I can look at it and I can say, well, gee, on January 7th, there's a really nice trip that has a Kona layover. It has a Los Angeles layover, and then back home. I'd like to have that, so I can ask for that trip. I can also, basically what we do when we bid is we tell the system what we don't want, and then we tell the system what we do want. So I can go in there and say, I don't want to go to city XYZ. So I can say avoid XYZ. I can say if I'm okay just to fly in and out, but I don't want to lay over there, I can say avoid layover at city XYZ. So the first thing you do is, again, you tell it what you don't want, and then you tell it what you do want. You could say, boy, I like to go to Honolulu, so give me Honolulu layovers. I like to go to London. Give me London layovers. I don't like trips that are more than 4 days, so I can say avoid trips 5 days or more. So I can, I put all that stuff in, and where you lie seniority-wise, the more likely that you're going to get what you want. If you're the number one pilot, you're going to get exactly what you want. If you're, and my percentage, I happen to be about 40%. So I'm realistic. I know that I'm probably not going to get Tokyo trips out of Houston, because they're very productive, high-value trips. They're 26 hours of flying time in 3 days. And where I am at 40% seniority, probably not gonna be awarded any Tokyo trips. Although I ask for them, but I'm realistic, and I know that I probably won't get it.
And so, just to put that in perspective too, I mean that's compensation, I assume, at some level, right? Meaning, do you fly 100 hours a month or 70 hours a month? I think I understand it that all pilots at some sort have a floor or a minimum for the month, and then they have the opportunity to go above that if they want to keep working and fly more. Is that a high level view of what that looks like?
Yeah. I would say a good generalization is about 75 hours a month. 75. I would say 70 to 80 hours a month is probably what most schedules are originally built for. 70 to 80 hours a month. And there's flexibility on both sides of that. So, at least at my airline, we are paid, and you're paid for flight time. That's what you're paid for. So, we get a minimum of 5 hours a day. So if we show up to the airport for a day, we're going to get 5 hours. So if you take 75 hours, which is the middle of that range, divide that by 5. If you're making 5 hours a day, that's 15 days. It's going to take you 15 days of work to get all that in. So that's probably pretty average. Now, if you happen to be a pilot who's very senior and you can hold this 26-hour, 3-day Tokyo trip, you just do the math, 3 times 26 is 78. You're working 9 days a month.
That's the math I was already doing. So super senior guy, you might work 9 days a month. And when I first got into aviation and I heard these numbers, right, I was ignorant to it. But what would you tell somebody, Wally, that says, God dang, Wally, you only work 80 hours a month. You must have tons of time to twiddle your thumbs. Like, what do you do? 80's a lot, though.
Yeah, 80 hours, that's it just depends. I mean, you do have a lot of time to twiddle your thumbs. For instance, right now, I'm on a layover right now, twiddling my thumbs, talking on this podcast. So you do have, one of the many beauties of this job is you have built-in time off. And really, on my layovers is when I relax, when I sleep. I mean, I catch up on sleep. I catch up on watching TV, the stuff that I don't have time to do at home because there's other things going on. But 80 hours a month, that's a big month. The other thing is, sometimes if you fly a particularly challenging 3 or 4 day trip, when you get home, you're just kind of wiped out. So, it may take a day or so to kind of recover from that.
Because as you are in another city, your time zone is 4 hours off, really 5 without daylight savings time here, but you got to be out of whack. You kind of left in the middle of the day and you kind of landed in the middle of the night. Weird, I'm sure. But so your month is yours to pick. I'm assuming, to simplify it a little bit, or let's just call it 4 weeks in a month. Are you bidding for trips normally? Is that your approach to it? Is that most people's approach to it? I want 4 3-day trips. I want 4 4-day trips.
Yeah, it just depends on what I have going on personally in a month. There might be an event on the evening of January 7th that I want to be able to attend. So, I have to look at things like that. Well, if January 7th is a Wednesday, I don't know what day of the week it is, but let's just say it's a Wednesday, and I also want to try to get weekends off. Obviously, I can't fly a 4-day trip that week, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments. I'm going to have to go in and say, gee, are there any 2-day trips? Or, it's possible to not fly at all that week and weight my flying around that week. The other thing that you're always concerned with is you really have to be looking really 2 months down the road. For instance, if there was something on February 2nd that I needed to be off for, I would have to factor that into how I bid for January, because if I were awarded a 4-day trip on January 30th or January 31st, it would go into February 2nd. So here it is, I'm bidding for January in December, but I'm also thinking of the next month, February as well. And socially, a lot, believe it or not, I got a lot of friends who are not aviation people, and a lot of times things come up and they'll say, "Hey, we're all going to get together on Friday night and do this." Well, I'm going to be in London Friday night. Now, had I known several weeks ago, it would not have been a problem at all to be off for this. But so sometimes you're not able to do some social things.
Are you when you think about the month, are you tasked to bid a certain number of hours? Like, do you have to bid the minimum per se?
Well, you don't have to bid, but if you don't bid, you're going to get assigned. So you're going to you have to fly a certain number of hours. I mean, if you don't bid, it's not like they just pay you and you sit home. It doesn't work that way. Now you can be on reserve, and that's a whole different it's a whole different thing where you're the pilot who is sitting home on call, and they just had someone call in sick for a trip that leaves at 4:00 this afternoon, and you're going to fly that trip now. Sometimes it can be a very nice situation if people are not calling in sick and we've got good weather. You may not fly all month, but you are subject to being ready to go fly. Me personally, that doesn't really appeal to me, but some people like that.
Is there a ratio? Like, is it 1 for every 10 pilots that sits reserve, or is that something that or is it just it's about 10%?
It's probably more about 20%, I would say, would be my guess. I really don't know, but I just
I wouldn't like that either. I'd be on pins and needles all day. Like I can't get started on a project at the house because I'm waiting. I might have to leave. Right? That would be something that would feel awkward to me. Again, I'm sure you get used to this stuff, but okay. So now it's a week. The week has come. You got a 4-day trip coming up. There's no getting out of those things, right? Like I can take the middle of my week off. You're going to be in another country more than likely. You're kind of, once your work week starts, you are committed.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, you can, if you get sick or if you have a family emergency, in 35 years, I've only been taken off the middle of a trip one time, and that was when my father passed away. But, if I got sick right now, I mean, I'd call in sick, and somehow they'd be able to cover it. Worst case, they may have to delay a flight, but if you're sick, you're sick. So there is that ability. I mean, it certainly becomes a hindrance to the operation if you're at an outstation, not at a pilot base or a hub where there are pilots ready to go. It could certainly cause havoc to the operation. But, that's out of your control. If you're sick, you're sick.
So the week's set, this trip, you're probably going 1 city, 2 city, 3 city back or something similar to that. And it varies with seniority and age and your flight line. Like 35 years in, you've probably got what you want for the most part from a trip perspective. But I guess I'm interested in the day. The show is a day in the life. So what's a day like? You're going to fly a 7 or 8 hour trip tomorrow that leaves the airport at 3:00 in the afternoon. What does Wally's day look like?
Well, so the day is going to look different depending on the airplane, because each airplane type sort of has a different mission type. So I'm on a wide body airplane, and the trip that I am on right now is a 4-day trip. I left yesterday at I think 9:40 a.m. and flew about an 8-hour flight to Honolulu. We got in Honolulu about 2:30 in the afternoon Hawaii time, which was 6:30 p.m. Houston time. And I ordered DoorDash, had some dinner, went across the street, got some snacks from the local ABC store, and I went to bed pretty early. It was probably 9 p.m. Honolulu time, which is 1 a.m. on my body time, and I basically have all day today off in Honolulu, and I leave. I think we have a 6 p.m. pickup at the hotel to go to the airport, and then tonight I fly to Denver. We fly a red-eye, so we're going to fly all night long today. So at some point this afternoon, about a 2.5 to 3 hour nap will be in my future. We land in Denver tomorrow morning, which would be Sunday, about 6 in the morning. And then I have 24 hours off in Denver. And then leave the hotel fairly early Monday morning, and then we fly from Denver to Chicago and back to Houston, and I think I'm home at 4 in the afternoon or something on Monday afternoon. So that's my 4-day trip, and I think this trip for 4 days is worth about 22 hours of flight time, so a little bit over the minimum. If the minimum of 5 hours a day would be 20 hours, so a little bit extra. Now, if you're on maybe a narrow body airplane, a 737, obviously 737 can't fly 8 hours, so we're not flying those from Houston to Honolulu. So your trip may start out with day one. You may start out and go from, let's say, Houston to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 2.5 hours. Fort Lauderdale to Denver, maybe a 4.5, 5 hour flight. Lay over in Denver, wake up the next morning. You may go from Denver to Omaha, Nebraska, to Chicago, to Calgary, Canada. Again, I'm just making this stuff up, okay? But something like this. It may be a 10, 11 hour duty day, 8 in the morning. You get to the hotel in Calgary by 7 p.m. at night. You may wake up the next day and leave the afternoon of day 3 and fly from Denver to San Francisco. And then maybe the last day you fly from San Francisco to Houston, to San Antonio, to Houston. And, that might be a sampling of what a trip at my airline might look like on a 737, or maybe an Airbus trip, A320 as well.
So you said you have pickup at the hotel tonight, right, to go fly to Denver tonight/tomorrow. That's in your city that you're in. What was yesterday like? If you had to leave the airport, meaning the departure time of your flight was 9:20ish or 9:30ish, what is the lead up time to that happen? What does it look like for us that don't know?
Yeah, we are required to be at the airport depending on whether it's international or domestic. For an international trip, 90 minutes before departure. For a domestic trip, an hour before departure, for the first leg of a trip, and that's where you meet the other pilots in a determined area, whether it be a flight planning area or a operations area, and you kind of get to know each other. I mean, the two guys that I flew out here with, I had flown with. One guy years ago, probably 20 years ago on the 737, and the other guy I had flown with about 3 years ago on the 767. So, we knew each other, but, that's the training that you're going to get at an airline is so much of it is adhering to standard operating procedure, and that is how we are able to go fly with 2 or 3 pilots, or sometimes 4 pilots that you've never met, and we can operate operate this flight safely. You look at sports and you go, well, gee, this football team is horrible because the offensive line is horrible. They've never played together. Okay, and as they play more games together, they're going to get better. Well, luckily in our operation, we have all the standard operating procedures, and that's what training is all about. So everybody is supposed to be doing things the same way, and for the most part, we do things the same way.
And so you have to be there an hour before. I kind of know where you live, but let's assume you live about an hour from the airport. Do you what's the risk of being late for that? I mean, those of us that don't necessarily clock in, we don't know what that world's like either. So what if there's a traffic jam? What if you spill coffee on your pilot's shirt? Like, how do those things get solved for when that plane wants to leave no matter what, right? But there is life that gets in the way for all of us as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess the surgeon who's going to go do a heart transplant down in the medical center, that could happen to him as well. And it occasionally happens. I've been lucky in my career. There have been times where things have happened, but my father used to always say, you need to leave early enough so that when you have a flat tire, you can change that tire and still make it to wherever you're going. So my whole life has been about being early. On time is late. So
agreed.
Being early is kind of a mantra of my life. And the other thing that I have going for me, and most of the airline employees have, is we park off-site. We do not park at the terminal. We've got an employee parking lot, so we park our car, we get our bags out, and then we hop on an employee bus, and then we drive the last couple miles up to the airport, to the terminal. I know that if I am running late for whatever reason, I know I can save 20 to 30 minutes by just parking in the parking lot at the airport. Yeah, I'm going to pay $20, $25 a day, whatever it is. But if it means being on time, I'm certainly going to do it. And I think most people have that attitude. And occasionally, I will, I'll be walking to the airplane, and my phone will ring, and I'll look down and it's crew scheduling, and I'll pick it up, and they'll say, "Hey, I just want to let you know your first officer called. He's in a traffic jam. He should be at the airplane 30 minutes before departure." And you go, okay, all right. Well, we can work with that, especially if we're a 3-pilot crew. We've got 3 of us, so you take on a little bit more responsibility. And when he or she gets there, you say, okay, we're all caught up. We've done this for you. You still need to do this and this and this, and hopefully we can get out on time.
So total day, I mean, those days can be really long, right? You leave your house at, call it 7 a.m. that day for a 90-minute call time at least. That 7 a.m. Houston time becomes at least 7. You're not to the hotel till 7 or 8 o'clock Houston PM time, right?
Yeah, it's a long day, and I have learned over the years, when my body says, "Hey, I'm tired," I answer the call, and I try to let it sleep. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're in Honolulu. You go out and have a good time." Well, it was Friday night in Honolulu, so kind of probably a busy night. I actually, in the elevator, I told the 2 first officers, I said, "Hey guys, I don't know if you guys are going to go out to dinner or what, but I said I don't feel like fighting any crowds. I'm just going to go to my room and relax and go to bed early." And actually both of them said, "Yeah, we are too." So it's not a wild and crazy lifestyle. At least with me, it's actually pretty boring.
Yeah, I bet I bet if I was a 23-year-old man, it would be different than if I was a 53-year-old man. But I can definitely appreciate your approach to a day now. You mentioned DoorDash, and those guys might have gone out to dinner. Do airline pilots have a per diem, or are you kind of on your own, or what's that world like?
Yeah, we do have a per diem, and I don't even know what it is, but I will say it is more than enough to, you can eat comfortably on your trip. Obviously you have to pay it up front, and on your paycheck the following month you will have some per diem money. But I don't spend. I don't really pay attention to it, but I don't eat extravagantly. A $20 meal is probably pretty typical.
You've said the word seniority a number of times. I think seniority is a big thing in the airline industry, aviation as a whole. I don't even know what the right question necessarily is, but that makes me a terrible interviewer, I guess. But what's the mindset for a young pilot who is coming up, maybe a regional pilot today who's got zero seniority? They're sitting in a McDonald's somewhere in an airport listening to us right now because they're on reserves and haven't flown in 30 days, right? Is the goal to just constantly continue to try and get bigger jobs and having low seniority on those jobs? Or is it, get to where you can have good days off and manage, be able to bid what you want? I would think it's the previous one, because that's got to have to do with money and opportunity. But you tell me.
Yeah, it all depends. You hear a lot of people say, well, it's all about lifestyle, and lifestyle has a lot to do with it. And lifestyle means, am I going to, can I get weekends off? And it just depends where you are with your life. I mean, if you've got young kids at home, certain things are more important. Those Saturday morning soccer games or Saturday morning swim meets or whatever are real important. So you might be better served to stay as a first officer on a given airplane rather than upgrading to captain, because maybe your seniority percentage-wise as a first officer is 25%, and if you go to be a captain, you're going to be at maybe 95%. So 95% probably on reserve, and you sort of don't have control over. Now, when you're on reserve, you do have days off. Okay, you're going to have a certain number of days off, and you can count on, okay, hey, the 10th and 11th are my days off, and I know I'm going to be off for those days. But the days that you're on reserve, you just don't know what you're going to be doing.
All right, just a few rapid-fire questions or thoughts, I think, to wrap this show up. It's been very interesting, and I'm sure all those aspiring airline pilots maybe are thinking, how is that the life that I want to live? But let's talk about facial hair. What's the deal with facial hair and pilots? I obviously wear a beard, so I don't know. That'd be weird for me to shave my face, but why is that? That's got to just be tradition, or is there a safety aspect to it, or what?
No, there is a safety aspect of it too, and it's a head scratcher to me, because we in the United States you won't see major airline pilots with beards because, and this is what we were told, that the oxygen mask cannot form a good seal around your face with facial hair, which makes sense. However, you go to South America and pilots have beards down there, so and they're flying the same airplanes. So
same oxygen mask?
That I don't get that. But I can't even grow a beard, so it's not a factor for me, so I just shave.
Well, I would also think that it could get out of hand. There's a subjectiveness to length and how you would care for it and presentability, and you want those guys to look professional for sure. I think some airlines are allowing mustaches nowadays, but I guess that's because the oxygen mask goes above the nose if you need to put it on.
Yeah, our airline does allow mustaches. That's not an issue.
Okay, what about uniforms? Is that your own deal? Like you have to pay for uniforms? You get 2 a year, and if you want 3, you got to buy more?
Yeah, we get a certain allotment. I can't even tell you what it is. At my airline, we're about to be changing the uniform, so that's going to happen shortly. But I want to say the initial allotment, you get a uniform coat, you get an overcoat, you get a hat, you get I don't know, 6 shirts or so, and a couple pair of pants. I go through shirts pretty quick, so when I buy shirts, I buy 10 uniform shirts at a time, and just kind of keep them in my closet and take them to the cleaners when I get off a trip, and just kind of rotate them through. And they get you wear them a lot, and you're wearing a tie, so they're rubbing against your neck, and so the colors get kind of dirty.
Yeah, I tend to sweat, and even if it's not really hot, I kind of sweat a little bit. So I would think they'd yellow a little bit or something. I'd be pretty OCD about mine. Like I'd number them or something and really go through them so that they kind of color together.
And I go through shoes. I go through shoes quite a bit. I have a particular brand of uniform shoes that I wear. They have rubber soles. They don't have a steel shank in them, so if I do have to go through security, it's not setting off any alarms. But I just bought 3 new pair. I got 3 pairs sitting in my closet, and I got 5 years before I have to retire. That will probably get me to retirement.
Well, I guess when you find something you like, I'm the same way. I would buy the same ones, and if I could find 5 pairs of the shoes I wear to work every day, I'd probably buy them as well and put them on the shelf somewhere, especially if they were on sale or I got a special. No, you don't have to pay for parking. You said employee parking, so I'm assuming no paying for parking. Do you get a good deal in the airport food wise, like discounts at McDonald's and stuff because you're wearing the applets?
Most places do give you a discount. Papacitos in the Houston airport actually has a little employee meal that's not even on the menu. I mean, it's a taco, rice and beans, and it's kind of a snack. I usually buy the real stuff, but there's a little bit of a discount. There is. So, and at hotels typically, if you eat in the hotel, hotel food is usually expensive, but usually we get a 20 to 25% discount on eating in the hotel or even room service for the most part. So it takes a little bit of the sting away from it.
Well, and for me, I've always traveled and always wanted a late checkout. You just said your call time for tonight is in the 6 or so o'clock time frame, right? So you're going to check out. You're not going to check out at 11 a.m. and sit around. They obviously accommodate airline pilots differently.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I mean that's all done through the company. So they know we're leaving about. I mean, because when we check in, the sheet that we check in has our outgoing pickup time, so they know.
And probably they'll flip that room, and the pilot that gets there tonight at 9 o'clock will get that room all the same in some form or another.
Yep, probably so.
And the last thing I'll ask is you've got to be like one of the world's best packers. You take a 4-day trip every week of your life. I'm assuming pilots don't check bags. So any packing tip that you would give the twice-a-year traveler that has made your life so easy on the road?
Yeah, like my I would say my toiletry bag, when I get home, I don't even unpack it. It just stays in my suitcase. I mean, I have deodorant that stays in there. I have deodorant that stays at home. A razor in my bag, a razor that's at home. So, that never leaves. There's certain things that stay in my suitcase. For instance, my adapter for international, electricity. You go to Europe and the plugs don't look the same, so you got to have a little adapter, and they use 220 volts, so it's got to have an adapter for that. So all that stuff, just stays in my bag, and it sounds kind of boring, but I really have kind of the same clothes that I take on all my trips. Now, this trip that I'm on right now is a little bit difficult because I have one layover in a tropical climate, and I have one layover in a winter climate. So I'm having to pack. I'm wearing shorts and flip-flops right now, and then tomorrow I'll be wearing kind of a sweatshirt and long pants. But I take a light coat that stays in my bag year round, and it just, that's where it goes, is in my flying suitcase. And I figure if it's really, really cold, I'm not getting outside anyway. So
might look at snow once or twice, but that'd be about it each year probably for me.
Right.
Well, it's been fun, Wally. Hopefully all the listeners enjoyed the conversation, learning a little bit more what the month, week, day for an airline pilot looks like. Obviously, 35 years in, you've seen a lot of variation from what you just talked about, from the twin prop planes you flew early days to where you're at today. But appreciate the time, appreciate you sharing. And for all you listeners out there, if you want to be an airline pilot, lots of fun opportunities and maybe some long days, but it's a career worth chasing if you want to chase it. As always, fly safely and stay behind the prop.
Thanks for checking out the Behind the Prop podcast. Be sure to click subscribe and check us out online at BehindTheProp.com. Behind the Prop is recorded in Houston, Texas. Creator and host is Bobby Doss. Co-host is Wally Mulhern. The show is for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to replace actual flight instruction. Thanks for listening, and remember, fly safe.